Here, everyone get your fingers in the air. It's time for the Windy Watch. There's a lot going on as we approach the end of the finals and the beginning of the offseason.
Yes, we have a brand new rule in the NBA this year we're all going to learn about in the next couple of days. As soon as the finals are over, you can immediately start negotiating with your own free agents, which means if the finals end tonight, we can start seeing announcement of signings beginning really at the end of the game, but in the very near future. So you have a player like Tyrese Maxey. He's going to sign an extension, I'm sure, with Philly. Pascal Siakam is all lined up to stay in Indiana. You're going to see, those types of deals get announced in the next few days. And that's why we're going to watch very closely on the big free agents who may not sign with their teams in the next few days once the finals end and it becomes allowed. Specifically, Paul George. He has been in position to negotiate with the Clippers for months. They have not been able to come up with an agreement. If it doesn't come up with an agreement in the next few days, before July 1st, it is a green light for any teams out there. And obviously, several teams are signaling closely that they intend to go after Paul George in free agency, which is fascinating. The other guy, Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's in the same boat. He has been negotiating a new contract on and off with the Warriors for almost a year now, has not come to an agreement. If he doesn't come to an agreement when he is allowed to have pre-negotiations with the Warriors and he heads towards July 1st, it will make a very green light to everybody else in the league that Thompson is truly on the market.
And in what can only be described as the parlance of the day, Klay Thompson has unfollowed the Warriors on all of his social media.
Oh,
what's that?
What does that let you know?
Well, you tell me. You're much younger than I am.
To me, whenever I see that, that means that he's not being offered the money that he thinks he's deserving.
Yeah, I mean, it is the modern-day equivalent of holding a press conference and saying, I want out of here, right? That's basically what he's saying. So his longtime teammate, does this mean that we're done with Steph and Klay and Draymond? Well, Draymond Green, on his podcast yesterday, responded to seeing Klay Thompson defollowing.
I think it's hilarious. Just so y'all know, I laughed when I logged on here and Jackson's like, yo, so what about Klay? I'm like, what? Like, what happened? It's like, oh, he unfollowed the Warriors. I think that's comical. I know you all be wanting like somebody's feelings to be hurt or something. It ain't that, ain't never gonna be that. That's hilarious.
So I don't follow that. I mean, what is it? Like, if it's not that, if he's not unhappy or whatever the case may be, then why would he have unfollowed the Warriors? It does seem as though there is a direct effect between those two things to me.
Yeah, I think what Draymond's trying to say is Draymond's feelings aren't hurt from Klay unfollowing the Warriors. I think Draymond's like, if you want me to say I'm upset about Klay unfollowing the Warriors and unfollowing people, he's not upset, which I think adds another layer to this situation. So Klay's unfollowing the Warriors. Draymond, who we know has had different things going on with his own teammates, and we know he's not going anywhere. Draymond's like, I don't care that Klay's unfollowed all of us, so that adds another layer. Klay's unhappy. Draymond doesn't care that he's unhappy, so now what happens?
Is this a thing?
I think Dre cares that he's unhappy. I don't think Dre wants to make it a bigger deal. I think it comes down to, with the second apron, with where they are, and when you can speak more to the economics of that in that regard. But you have Andrew Wiggins, you have Steph Curry. Are you going through a rebuild? There's a reason, I keep saying this. There's a reason why Bob Myers is on NBA Countdown, okay? There's a reason why my former teammate is now the general manager of the Golden State Warriors. This time, everybody knew what's coming. And Klay Thompson is going to want the money at the level he wants the money. The question is his play correlating to the money he wants? I don't think it is anymore. So do you make the decision in the best interest of the team to move forward with Steph and to try to surround him at this juncture of his career with championship contending pieces? You do that by not signing Klay to the number he wants.
Wendy, what? I mean, what should I make of this?
It's very basic. It's a negotiation. The negotiation is on. If Draymond was a free agent, he would be doing stuff on his podcast, subtweeting and all that stuff. I think the key here is it's not just the amount of money, it's the amount of years. So this is the same thing with Paul George. Kawhi Leonard took less than the max, but the key, I think, for Paul was he took 3 years, not the max, which could be 5. I think Paul George wants 5, or at least 4 to be sure. Klay maybe won't. I mean, he's going to have to take a pay cut. He's coming down, but how many years can he get? Because Andrew Wiggins took a pay cut, but he got 4 years. Draymond took a pay cut, but he got 4 years. That's the thing. I would not freak out. If I was a Warriors fan, I wouldn't overreact to this. But I do think the negotiation season has absolutely started.
If you're
question, even if you do sign Klay back, are you a contender in the West? Klay
he averages 18 points and shoots 40% from 3 or so. that type of player is worth a lot of money.
I agree with you. I'm just asking for the team makeup.
Plenty of value in him. First of all, the unfollow is him announcing I'm a free agent, that I'm going to be listening to other teams. That's just a passive-aggressive way to let you know I'm going into the market. Of course it's petty. We love petty, though. We love petty.
There's nothing passive about it, actually. It is just
the aggressive way is like what we remember is you stand in front of a podium and say, trade me right now.
Right.
Like that's the aggressive way. The passive aggressive is we just do unfollow and let everybody else figure it out.
Right.
But I also think for Klay Thompson, he's got to come to a realization of where he is in his career. And maybe the Warriors are seeing him, and this could be part of it too, as let's transition you into a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. And maybe that's a better role for you going forward. And of course, commensurate to how much we're going to pay you, right? So I always say commiserate, it's commensurate.
Right.
But let's correct that. So I think that's where he is. And maybe there's other teams in the league that might say, we'll pay you to be a starter because you can help us where we are versus where the Warriors are with him.
When you consider the number of years, he's 34. So for whatever that's worth, I mean, you're going to give 4 years to a player who's 34.
Multiple surgeries.
That's one of the decisions that they have to make. Now, you mentioned Paul George. So I hope everyone was watching this. But the other night, Paul George has been, on the set for Countdown with our whole crew there. And the other night, Embiid is there. And they're asking Embiid about the offseason in Philadelphia. And this magnificent moment ensued.
I can't stand them. I hate Boston. Great city, great fans. Obviously they got some great players, but he hurts me a lot. So hopefully, this offseason we find a way to get better and, add some pieces. And,
add some pieces.
That's Paul George he's looking at, to be clear. We didn't see it in that clip.
Oh, yeah.
Paul George is sitting
Paul George was so tight, Paul was like,
Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact.
You were there, right? I mean,
so here's some context. That was not planned. Joel Embiid showed up. Tim Bontemps, who covers the Sixers for us all the time, saw him in the tunnel. I was like, hey, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, well, you want to go on Countdown? Bontemps booked him and brought him onto the set. Okay, so I know that there's like this, and by the way, congrats to our producer who said, get that man a microphone.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Paul George didn't know he was coming. It wasn't some sort of grand plan. It just sort of happened. If you want to blame somebody, blame Bontemps. But it didn't take that little, look to know that the Sixers were going to come after him. I won't do that again. But I will say this. What is interesting to me is that the Clippers are very aware that somebody is going to offer him a 4-year max contract, whether it's 76ers or the Magic, or a team could even trade for him. Because there's another thing with Paul George I want to point out. He has an option in his contract. This is known as the Chris Paul move, where you come to the team and say, I'm either going to sign with this team over here, or I'm going to pick up my option and you're going to trade me there. So even if you don't have cap space, a team, for example, underline, for example, like the New York Knicks, okay? If they wanted Paul George, they could say, you can come to us, we will trade for you. You don't have to sign him outright. Clippers know all this is going to go on, and yet they're still not making this offer. They're still not going to do this. And so again, if you get to July 1st, and the Clippers have done this, and they're going to play hardball, that's when you know he's truly going to be in the market. I suspect the Clippers read, at least on June 6th, 17th, is that they don't think they're calling his bluff. That they don't actually think he's going to leave his hometown of LA to go to Philly or Orlando or something like that.
He's also 34, by the way. He and Klay Thompson both at the same age. What do you think of this? Paul George to Philly, does that make them a championship team? Should someone like the Knicks be involved in this? What do you think, Drea?
Well, I think Paul George could fit with the Knicks because they need three-point shooting. They need knockdown three-point shooters. But when I think about him with Philly, I had the Clippers earlier this season when I was doing NBA Sideline. And the one thing Paul George told me, he said, some of our guys like to play certain ways. Like James Harden likes pick and roll actions. And he said, I like to play in randomness. I like to be creative. I like to play fast. I like to play with pace. When I think about Tyrese Maxey pushing the ball in transition, kicking it to Paul George so he can play in randomness, playing off of Joel Embiid, and also catch and shoot threes. Philly was 25th in the league in catch and shoot threes. Paul George hit those at 45% this season. So he feels an immediate need for Philly. And I do see him fitting really well with the pace that Maxey plays with and the way that he likes to play, he being Paul George.
Look, the Celtics have some decisions to make on Derek White. Obviously, Jason Tatum's going to get paid a lot. There's a lot of second apron penalties that come along with them being over the cap. Like, I think Paul George makes Joel Embiid a contender for a world championship. And shout out to Joel Embiid. I know we're talking Paul George here on the low-hanging fruit. Like, I love how he always incites conversation like this. And for a guy that hasn't been to the Eastern Conference Finals, that understands all that, I love that he stated he hates Boston. I want to see rivalries in this
He's
game.
nicknamed himself Troel.
I love it.
So this is what he does.
And then, Alan, back to you as my resident Knicks person here. Wendy just said there's a way the Knicks could trade for him. Some might look at him and say, if he was on the floor and healthy, which, of course, for the Knicks nobody was, they might be playing right now. What do you think?
Well, I know that last summer they did actually try to trade for him, at least had discussions about trying to trade for him. It was the extension part that really was the end of the conversation. But they have been interested in Paul George, and he would be a
By the way,
magnificent
another
fit.
player who could, in theory, negotiate and get a contract done within hours of the end of the finals is OG Anunoby.
Yep.
Let's keep an eye on that. Most people believe that Anunoby will stay with New York, but there have been indications that he may want to test the market because he's not thrilled with what the Knicks might do.
I've heard that internally as well.
Okay, we're going to get to that as we continue. In the meantime, I want to show you another moment for